just a bloke in a bar.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith. We have a huge episode for you today. Make sure to text 0457 736 736, the Origin fallout. Now, Smithy, I'm down in Sydney and I swear it's a stitch up. They have been looping replays of the series win. It's breaking my heart. How do you feel after Sunday night's historic win by New South Wales?
Oh, Kempy, I'm disappointed like all Queenslanders are. And really, I was there live at the game again. The boys started fantastic. I thought their first 10 to 12 minutes, they were right in it. And I just thought, wow, this is a complete turnaround of attitude, you know, the way they approached the opening exchanges, and they were physical and they were aggressive and they got stuck into Tommy early. And then it all went downhill from there. So I think like a lot of us up here in the Sunshine State, Kempy, everyone's sort of scratching our heads and thinking, you know, where to from here? Thinking about Game 3, what changes need to be made? If so, is there any changes that can be made? You know, we know Harry Grant was missing for Game 2. Kalen Ponga was injured, obviously, as well, AJ Brimson. But really, they're the three guys that are sort of in the mix to play Origin that were unavailable for Game 2. And is that going to make a huge difference to our performance in Game 3?
Mate, I've thought about this quite a lot. Obviously, it was a devastating loss. It was a historic loss. But I think that it is evidence that we need to take a new direction in the sense that we have to build towards the future now. I don't think that we can keep focusing on what has been. Not that we have been, but you know what I mean? I think that we need to look at who is the guy that we want to lead the state over the next 5 years. And in my opinion, one of the big changes, I think, that when I saw the game and when I saw Munster walk off and say, you know, we're not getting the ball and people aren't getting to where we say, which was, you know, quite shocking to hear him say that.
Well, it is,
I believe Queensland should put Munster as the guy they build their game plan around. I would go as far as to say Munster should be, in discussion with selectors as not picking the side, but I guess talking about who works well with him, who can he trust on his edges. What are your thoughts on putting Munster as the main man moving forward?
Well, you know, just looking at their attack the other night, and you know, there was plenty of effort. Let's not say they didn't put any effort. There was a lot of effort, but it didn't look like they put together any sort of sets where they actually put too much thought into it. It looked like it was just they were throwing the ball to someone and hoping for the best and just saying, here, mate, you do something. The guy that looked most likely out of anyone was Munster, particularly in the second half, where he got the ball sort of with no momentum, no ruck speed, and at times flat-footed and made half line breaks. You know, so he's a type of guy that he is that X-factor player where he can, you know, make something out of nothing. But at the same time, his other teammates, they need to, you know, play their role as well. But most definitely, he's certainly a guy that you can build a team around. There's no doubt about that. But moving to Game 3, I guess the Queenslanders have got to think about what approach do they take to that game. Is it about trying to salvage a bit of pride in the series and winning that game and really trying to put together a team that has the best chance to win Game 3? Or do you completely wipe the 2021 series and think about building for next year and maybe giving a couple of young guys an opportunity, you know, to have a taste of Origin, have a taste about what the camp's about and the commitments involved, and having experienced 80 minutes of Origin football, win or lose, take the result out of it. Don't even worry about if you lose it because, you know, you've already lost the series and start thinking and start preparing for 2022.
Yeah, my personal opinion is I would be beginning to prepare for next year. I would actually be taking Game 3 as Game 1 of 2022 because it's not like, you know, we lost the games by a substantial margin. So it's not like it, you know, we've already felt as hurt as we can be. So I don't feel like, let's say we blooded all these young guys in Game 3.
Yep.
And we lost by 50. We've kind of already lost by 50. So we still gained something from it. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we're currently getting beaten 76-6.
Yes. Wow.
That's where we're at, and that's that's concerning from a Queensland point of view to only be able to score 6 points in 2 matches. But also on the other side of the coin can be you need to take your hat off to New South Wales to be able to,
Oh, wow.
score that amount of points. 76 points in 2 matches. That's a fair effort. But also to keep a Queensland side to only one try, and it was on display. The efforts and the second efforts and the desperation in their defence was on display for everyone to see in game 2, where there was a couple of moments where, late in the game where the game was wrapped up, like there was no way Queensland was going to win it. But the last-ditch efforts by some of the players, and in particular Brian To'o on Kyle Felt, it was just amazing. And it just shows where that team is at right now. The belief.
That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you with this. So now, again, I don't want to get into hyperbolic statements or anything like that because I do believe backing something. I mean, you know what? Actually, I live on hyperbolic statements, but I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to be as measured as I can. Now, you're an Origin great, a Queensland great, but let's just say you had a one-off game, and I know this is hard to measure, but a one-off game in Origin against this side, where would you rate them compared to the best Queensland sides and New South Wales sides that you've kind of personally experienced?
Yeah, this is a hard one to sort of comment on because I've seen this New South Wales side play live two matches. I haven't actually been out there and played against them, obviously. Yeah. But they, given their performances and how clinical they've been in the first 2 matches, they would rate quite highly against any of the New South Wales sides I played against. And I played against some of the great teams, particularly early on in my career where, when I started in 03, sort of 04 and 05 as well, looking across the field at that those sky blue jerseys, the majority of that side made up the Australian side at the time. You're looking at guys like Gaznia, Anasta was in there, Danny Badiris, played against Andrew Johns, Brad Fittler when he come back out of retirement, Mark O'Mealy, Willie Mason, all of these great players. They were the current Kangaroos. So, it's sort of hard to say, well, this team is better than them. And it's really hard to, compare eras too, mate, because it's, as we know, and all of our listeners know as well, it's a completely different game that's being played now over the last, sort of 2 seasons compared to back then. But, given what they've been able to produce in the first 2 matches, you have to say that it's one of the better outfits that New South Wales have put onto the field in the last, sort of decade or 2.
Absolutely. It was, you take your biases away. It was a pleasure to watch these absolute freaks come together like a Latrell Mitchell, like a Tom Trbojevic, a Tedesco, and then that forward pack. I felt like the forward pack for New South Wales, although, of course, they get appreciated, but as you said, to hold a team to 0 at Suncorp, that's pretty special.
Well, it's the first time ever, Kempy. It's the first time that Queensland have been kept to 0 in Queensland or playing in Brisbane, and it's the first time. I think I had a look. I did the math after the game. It was 27 years. Game 2, 94 at the MCG, where New South Wales beat Queensland 14 blot. Mate, we got plenty of the listeners texting in with their thoughts. Make sure you text in, please. 0457 736 736. I'll just read a couple out quickly. DCE needs to go. Munster to captain and get Sam Walker and Reece Walsh into the side to spark some new blood. Wow. There you go. That's along the lines of what you were saying, Kempy. Sort of thinking about 2022.
Yeah, look. I think. Don't get me wrong. I think DCE incredible player, and maybe you keep him in the side. I just think we need to consider the game plan around Munster. Now, whether that is DCE there or whether that's Sam Walker or someone else, I'm not sure. I just think that the game plan needs to change.
Well, on that sort of thought, like it worked last year. You know what I mean? Like they played really well last year, and Munster seemed to be the more dominant player throughout the series. I think back to game 1. I think it was game 1 was it Adelaide? Was that game 1 last year?
Yes.
Where. And the kicking game in particular, right? Munster I think he touched the ball twice on the last play in the first half. We go into the sheds down. We come out in the second half. I think Munster had 15 touches.
Wow.
On the last play in the second half. He dominated the kicking game and was just plugging the ball deep into the corners, forcing New South Wales to come out of their own end. And DCE, he played a role for the team. He just steered the team around the park, had a couple of darts, runs here and there. And when the ball finished on his side, he put nice finishes on the sets and really allowed Munster to just do his thing. But I don't know. I don't know how things have changed so drastically in the space of, 6 months, 7 months, where they played an Origin series in November last year, and now we look like a totally different team.
Absolutely. It was shocking. You're totally right to think that we looked so confident and we had a bit of swagger about us last year, a bit of a devil may care kind of footy style. Whereas this year we kind of looked like we were searching for answers, and it was very clunky in attack. It didn't seem like, I think in the first half we actually had more good ball sets than New South Wales, which shows you how incredible what New South Wales did, but also alarming for Queensland.
Yeah, well, watching it live, mate, was the thing I noticed most about the attack for Queensland and the attack for New South Wales was the ability and the speed in which the players got into position. And they got back behind the ball, particularly early tackles when, there was on teams on their kick reception. They got back behind the ball quickly. Tedesco might have brought the ball back on his kick return. An outside back might have got in and had a strong carry, and then bang, they were ready to go, mate. They were ready to go sideline to sideline, and they just chose an edge to hit. They then go bang across the other side of the field, so they're constantly moving the middle forwards of Queensland, and that's why we've seen them drop off, like almost fall off the cliff with their energy. Whereas then you flip it to the other side for Queensland. They struggled to get behind the ball quickly. They were going giving the ball to Papali'i, and then Welsh would take a hit up, and then Kurt Capewell would come in for a run, and then by the time they were set and ready to go, it was last tackle, and they had to kick. And like you said, you touched on the good ball stuff, and Billy Slater actually made the comment, and he's a selector. Some of the good ball sets that they threw at New South Wales, it looked like there was just no organisation, and people just didn't know what was going on, and that's really hard to believe that could be the case, because they had 10 days in the first match to prepare. They had a week for game 2. Like, surely the calibre of these guys could organise a set of 6 in good ball.
Yeah, I mean, it was very surprising. It's one thing to get blown off a park by a much better side, but when you get your opportunities, as you know more than anyone, you've got to take them in Origin. But after the break, we will talk about who replaces Cleary for New South Wales. It is a huge topic. And how will Penrith go without a guy like Cleary? Make sure to text us on 0457 736 736, and we'll see you after the break. Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith on SEN. Make sure to download the app, go to the website, all that good stuff with SEN. Also brought to you by Bloke in a Bar, the best beer in the history of mankind. My sources continue to claim each week. No one has messaged me and said it's bad, so it must be true. But now, make sure to text in also 0457 736 736. Rooster Rex says, I think the reason Queensland won game 1 last year, 2 reasons. Cleary still had the loss of the grand final in his mind, and Munster in form and fit. Jake with Grant back and Reid, Marnie and Ponga will definitely see a better performance. Will free Munster up to do his thing. How many more teams does Darren This is from Paul. How many more teams does Darren Lockyer get to destroy? Broncos and now Queensland need to go as one of the main selectors. Wally realised early on he was better at commentating than sports reporting. Paul, you are incorrect in what you just said.
Wow.
That is the worst thing I've ever read. No. Anyway, that's your opinion, Paul. We respect it, but it was wrong. Now, Smithy, we need to talk about the New South Wales half. Now, Nathan Cleary having one of the best years we've seen from a 7 in a very, very long time. Minimum, it looks like he's going to be out for about a month. You would think that he would likely play through any pain this year and get the reconstruction at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But when it comes to New South Wales, they've got 2 options, in my opinion. You either play to go for a massive clean sweep, or you bring someone in to hopefully win, but also build depth in the half position. Who would you replace Cleary with?
Well, first up, Kempy, like what's the latest on Nathan Cleary? Like, is he out? Is he not? Because I'm hearing mixed reports about he could miss a few weeks, or he might be playing through. without sort of any surgery, or is he just having? He's been
Well, I think
completely
he's-
ruled out of Game 3.
I think he's been ruled out of Game 3 by Brad Fittler.
Okay.
And the Panthers, the best case scenario from the Panthers is 1 month out.
Wow.
Now, he's seeing a surgeon today.
Okay.
And that will determine whether he gets surgery immediately or they go to strengthen it, and it's a 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, given the situation Penrith find themselves in, sitting equal first on the ladder, and really this is as all rugby league people know, this is a golden opportunity for them to win a premiership. I dare say that they'll, if they can, will try to stay away from surgery, and get him back sort of in that 4 to 6 week mark. Even that period of a month can do a fair bit of damage to their sort of position on the ladder if they don't play well without him. But looking now, considering that he's out of Game 3, they're going to have to find a new halfback and someone that really suits the style of a Luai. I don't know. Reynolds is fit, isn't he?
Reynolds fit, yes.
Adam Reynolds. He'd probably be the guy that I'd chuck in there. He's got a very strong kicking game, goal kicker too, replaces Cleary, even though Latrell's in there and can kick goals. I just think they need to go with someone really steady and consistent, someone that's been there before. So they're not thinking sort of 2022. They're thinking whitewash. They're thinking clean sweep. Well, that's what I'd be thinking if I was in that camp as well. I don't know what you think. If there's any other player that you can think of.
Me personally, if my thinking is we want to make this historic, you go Reynolds because he is closer to a Cleary, and the main thing you want to keep intact is that Penrith playing style.
Yes.
But in saying that, if you're thinking we want to build for the next 4 to 5 years and make sure we have a half there in case Cleary is injured in the future, I think you go Mitchell Moses.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. That is a fair point, mate. He has been playing quite well for Parramatta this year, and thinking down the track. Well, if you're thinking down the track and everything being equal, if Nathan Cleary stays fit, he's going to play for a long time.
Yes.
So by the time Cleary finishes his Origin career, how old's Mitch Moses?
Well, Mitch Moses is older, but I just
there you
mean, I just more mean if if you blood Moses now, and in the worst case scenario, Cleary gets injured or whatever, you have a guy that's kind of already played in that 7 role. Just because you just don't know. But I agree with you. Cleary is so young that he's got that position locked. If he's healthy, you're not going to need to do that.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I'm the coach of New South Wales, I'm thinking I'm going to put a half in there that's going to complement Luai, and the rest of the side, and someone that's just got a real steady hand. He's been in the big games before and performed well. I'm going Adam Reynolds.
On the Ren Diggy.
Yeah, I pick him, mate. He's a great goal kicker. He's one of the best goal kickers in the comp. He's got, as I said, probably the best short kicking game in the competition.
Oh wow!
And and he's ultra reliable. So I'm chasing the clean sweep, and I think Adam Reynolds is the man to do that.
Talk about bittersweet. The Rabbitohs, if Reynolds does get selected and he wins the Origin series, or they've already won it, but he gets to lift the trophy. The irony of the picture that you could only offer a guy a 1-year deal and he's lifting the the Origin shield. Could you imagine?
Oh, mate, it's crazy. I'm still trying to understand what went on there at Redfern, but anyway. Away from the subject we're talking about with Origin, but he's a type of player that he'll go there and he'll be professional and play well, and he won't make it about himself because if he does get picked and he's part of this team and if they were to win, he knows he's come in late in the last game and Cleary's pretty much sealed the series as the halfback for the first 2 games. But as you said, mate, it would be pretty ironic for that to happen.
Now, it is Origin still. Two parts. You've got Mulitalo, who was not allowed to play the day before the game. Yeah. And you've also got
day of the game.
Mate. Day of the game. Absolutely disgraceful in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. It usually means nothing. You've got Jerome Luai that has openly said, I choose Samoa over everything. So, two-pronged question. What were your thoughts on Ronaldo Mulitalo situation? And also, what are your thoughts on To'o and Jerome playing for Australia or Samoa?
Well, first and foremost, I felt sorry for Ronaldo and his family because he was on the cusp of living out a childhood dream, and something that his family had made a huge sacrifice to make many years ago to bring him to Australia to live out that dream. So I felt really sorry about that, but we're going to pick it up after the break. Keep tuning in to the Captain's Run here on SEN.
Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith on SEN. Make sure to download the app now. Smithy, you had to cut the thought short, but continue the thoughts on Ronaldo Mulitalo and his, I guess, one of the most controversial days in Origin history, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, again, I was saying I really felt for the young man and his family because they uprooted from New Zealand because he didn't see a pathway into elite rugby league in New Zealand, and there just wasn't one there for him. So his family packed everything up from New Zealand, went over to Australia to let their son, chase his dream, and all of a sudden he's on the verge of making his debut, and then someone points out a indiscrepancy in his eligibility. Like, it's just crazy. And then I could not believe that they actually told him he couldn't play on the eve of the match. It was an embarrassing moment for our game. It really was. It really was. Given the fact that he'd submitted his last two contracts, he had written on there eligible for Queensland.
Mm-hmm.
Those contracts were then submitted to the NRL and they were approved.
Yes, they were.
And as Paul Green spoke about in his post-match press conference, I believe it was, the QRL, they just get a list of eligible players, and he was on the list given to them by the NRL. And then all of a sudden they do a backflip and say, "Oh, sorry, mate, we stuffed up on that one. We missed it. You can't play."
Oh, mate, it was one of the most shocking decisions I've ever seen with footy, just due to the fact that there is so much that would have gone in sacrifices, not knowing whether he even would play for Queensland. Now, the key to wanting eligibility to be, clear cut, and I mean, the whole reason we have rules for eligibility is to make sure that the New South Wales and Queensland players, do they love the state? Are they about the core of this game? And that's bleeding for your state.
Yep.
Ronaldo Mulitalo said no to New Zealand when he could have been selected by Michael Maguire, missing out on tens of thousands of dollars worth of match payments, and re-pledged his allegiance in under 20s after making 18s and 20s for Queensland. If that isn't a Queenslander through and through, then I don't know what is. What else does he need to do to prove that he loves the state and is a Queenslander? Yeah,
that's right. And that's the strange part about the whole thing, is that he's pledged his allegiance to Queensland. And you mentioned he represented the state in under 16s, 18s and 20s. So it's not like this has just all of a sudden popped up. He's played at the junior level. He's been involved. He was picked at 18th man at the start of the camp. Why wasn't something said then?
Crazy.
Just on the point that he may get a run, which ended up happening. Yeah. It's just it was really unfortunate. It was embarrassing that it got that far to what was it, like 10 hours before a match?
Mate, it was
where he was ruled to be ineligible. It's just crazy, that it's a young man that has said, I don't want to play for anyone other than Queensland, and I want to play for Australia. And now, because of a 10-month discrepancy, he's told he's not allowed.
Now, speaking of Australia, Australian selections, now talk about, I guess, a dramatic shift in, personnel and where they're from when it comes to, it used to be a lot of Queenslanders, before your time, it was a lot of New South Welshmen. It feels like the pendulum has swung back to New South Wales. With the Australian side in the key positions, just quickly, like who would you select? Would you have many Queenslanders in the Australian side right now?
Well, let's just talk of form and looking at State of Origin, and a lot of people, and probably interesting to get the views of the listeners on this, but people sort of see State of Origin as a bit of a selection process for the Australian side. Now, going off the first two games, I don't know how many Queenslanders you could put in that side. Possibly, I reckon you'd keep Munster at 6. I know Josh Papali'i missed game 1 through suspension, but I think you have him in there also. And I just don't know who else you could put in there at the moment on form.
Mate,
On form, I'm talking about. Like you look at
Yeah.
nearly the entire New South Wales back line. Wow.
Yep.
Both centres, both wingers, the fullback, they've been incredible. And then unfortunately for the New South Wales forwards, their performances have probably been overshadowed given the spectacular tries and the skill and the performances that those outside backs have put in. But they laid the foundation for those outside backs to play the way they've played in the first two games.
Absolutely, and they're a victim of their own selflessness. That forward pack for New South Wales, every man played for their other man. There was no individual in that pack that was thinking, I want to break a bunch of tackles and I don't care where we need to get to in sets. I'm going to do my own thing. And so you're right, they're a victim of their own selfless kind of acts and putting their backs on a pedestal. But I agree with you. I think, maybe you put Welch on. This would be my side.
Yep.
It would be the entire New South Wales backline. It would be Munster at 6, then it would be Cleary if he's fit.
Yep.
At 13, I would have Yo. I'd have Papali'i in the front row. I'd probably start Saifidi on the bench. On the edges, I'd have Angus Crichton and Cam Murray on the bench. You may even have Tarek Sims. You've got Jake Travojevic. You've got Paulo and Haas. Haas has made 57 tackles in 2 games and not missed a single tackle in both Origin games.
Wow.
That's an incredible feat. So, who would you put at 13 for Australia?
That's it's a difficult one. Given Jake Trebojevic is injured at the moment too, or maybe you could put Papali'i at 13, because the way they play 13 now is like they're another ruck forward essentially. But in saying that, Yo has been fantastic. He's been like the silent assassin for New South Wales this year. He goes about his business without too much fuss, and he doesn't particularly run over the top of people and scatter defenders and all that sort of stuff. He's quite an awkward style of runner that's hard to get a hold of. But the thing that he does do is he creates a lot of time and space for his halves. He takes a lot of defensive pressure away from those guys with the way he plays as like a link player in the middle. His ball playing ability is fantastic, and having played against him, particularly last year for Penrith, he's taken that form straight into the State of Origin arena and just performed superbly. So given the way he's played in those first 2 games and what he does in particular for the team, your comments before, mate, saying how selfless they play, what the actions that they're doing on the field is all about trying to help their teammate. I'd probably have Yo there right now.
Yeah, he's been incredible. Now, after the break, we will be speaking to TopSport. Make sure to join the conversation. Don't call. Just text 0457 736. And after the break, we'll chat and we'll catch up with Tristan from TopSport as we check out the odds for round 16 on the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith on SEN. Welcome back to the Captain's Run. We have Tristan on the line. Many a sleepless night, waiting for the angelic voice to grace my ears. Tristan, how have you been, mate?
Very good, Kempy. Very good. How about yourself?
Mate, I am fantastic. Now, there's so much movement when it comes to sport over the weekend. Coming this weekend, we've got a huge game, Roosters v the Storm. Give us your TopSport odds, please.
Yeah, big game tomorrow night. The Roosters obviously have a few players still out. It's $1.29 Melbourne, $3.75 the Roosters. The line's 12.5. It's shifted from 11.5 out to 12.5. 185 the minus, 195 the plus. Obviously, this one's very interesting to you, Smithy. Do you feel the Storm are going to try to really put the foot down over the next month and try to secure that minor premiership after Nathan Cleary is obviously out for a period for the Panthers?
I reckon they've smelt blood in the water, Tristo. I reckon the opportunity now with Nathan on the sidelines for 4 to 6 weeks. I think we're just seeing one of our listeners text in. He has been ruled out. He's staying away. He's put off surgery. He's going to rehab the shoulder and he's expected to return within sort of a month, 6 weeks. I reckon Craig Bellamy and the senior players will think this is our golden opportunity to wrap up another minor premiership for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And just on that betting, the Storm are actually into $1.65 now to win the minor premiership. 3 weeks ago, they were $3.80.
Wow.
That's a big move. Penrith out to $2.90. So They were in as short as $1.40 there about 3 weeks ago. So a big shift in that betting. The premiership market, just on that recent news with Cleary obviously not going to miss the full season now, Panthers have just tied them back into $3. They were $3.20, but Melbourne's still $2.80 to win the title. So very close at the top of the board with South Sydney $6.50, Parramatta $9 just behind.
What about Origin 3, mate? Now, obviously, it's already won. The series has already won, but I'm sure you've got markets on clean sweeps. I'm sure there's a lot of money pouring in for New South Wales. What are the odds for Game 3, mate?
Yeah, unfortunately, the clean sweep odds are very short. New South Wales are $1.15 to take out this match, which would obviously equate to a clean sweep. Queensland, $5.50. The line's 16.5 now. It was 19.5 when we first opened it up, but with Nathan Cleary obviously not going to play now, it has tied them back a little bit Queensland's way. So it's 16.5 at the moment. So very, very short, the Blues, to get the clean sweep.
Mate, thank you so much for calling in again. I'll have another week of sleepless nights until we speak, but it's always great to hear your voice, buddy.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tristan.
Welcome back to the Captain's Run with Cameron Smith on SEN. Make sure to download the app. We've got plenty of text, biggest text, really important text, I think, to get some clarity. Kempy, Smithy, DCE getting hammered isn't the go. Halves can only go forward and create options if their forwards are doing their job. Now, no one's hammering DCE. He's been an incredible servant of Queensland. I think it's more, as the captain, obviously, he's the focal point of who you discuss of how we fix this problem. What do you think about that, Smithy?
No, I agree. And he's got to be in discussion surely closely with Paul Green about the preparations for Game 3 and the way the game plays. And I actually made the comment post-game about where Queensland goes from here. Well, it's clear that they've struggled in attack. They've scored 6 points in 2 matches, and they need to be scoring at least 20 to be in the contest against this New South Wales side. So if you're taking the game plan or the style of football that they've played in the first 2 games into Game 3, it's crazy.
Yes.
They can't expect to go to the Game 3, play the same way they have in the first 2 matches and expect a different result. So DCE as the skipper, along with guys like Munster and whoever's playing 9 and fullback in Game 3, need to sit down with the coach and come up with a plan that's going to allow them to play the best style of football that will give them an opportunity of winning this match.
Absolutely. Another text here, is Kurt Capewell better suited back row than the centres? That's from Troy. Your thoughts, Smith?
Yeah, Troy, absolutely right. Been saying it on our show here for the last 3 weeks when Origin first started. He's a back rower, plays there every week, has played in the middle as well. But I guess that's where Queensland's at the moment. Like who else do we turn to? Like there's a Tom Opacek playing who's a young man, but is he best suited for Origin? We're not sure. Clearly, the selectors don't feel as though that's the case. It's a worry for Queensland. The depth at the moment and the options that they have in certain positions to call upon other players. We were talking off air earlier in the day, Kempy, about some of the teams going back a few years for Queensland. The guys that were on the bench for Queensland were elite players. Like Cooper Cronk played several seasons on the bench for Queensland, and he was a premiership halfback. Unfortunately, we're going through a period where we just don't have the players available for that. And maybe that's a discussion that we have for next week about the talent pool available to the Maroons.
Absolutely. Now, on to the tipping. Roosters v the Storm. I think this is going to be a great clash. Who have you got, mate?
I've got the Storm.
Yes, I think so too. I think the Storm are going to be red hot.
I was going to try and elaborate on that, but I just think the Storm, they're cruising at the moment. It's going to be a great game. And of course, the game's moved to Newcastle, given the situation in Sydney with the COVID and all that sort of stuff. But I just think the Storm are positioned really well to continue their run of wins.
Now, Warriors v Dragons. The Warriors have Townsend and Dallin Watene-Zelezniak are both going to play. Who you got, Warriors, Dragons?
Yeah, big ins.
Massive
huge ins for the Warriors, and they've shown throughout the year, that they can play some really great footy, some entertaining footy. I'm going to tip the Warriors here.
I'm actually going to tip the Dragons because I didn't mind Ben Hunt's work when he came on the field for Queensland. I actually think Benny Hunt's playing some fantastic footy.
Yep, agree. He is, and he's been great for the Dragons in his last couple of matches.
Panthers Eels, who you got?
Well, there's no crowds, as we know, throughout Sydney. And this game is being played in Penrith. They've struggled.
They have.
Without Cleary. They're a great footy side. I've wrapped them all season. But they can't seem to get the job done without him.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I'm going to back them.
You're going to back Panthers?
Yeah, I'm going to back him. Matt Burton's named in the halves with Luai. I'm going to say those Penrith players involved in Origin 2 are going to come back on a huge high. I'm going to back Penrith.
I'm going Eels. I think it's a statement game. On to Bulldogs Manly.
Manly. I think they're going to be too good.
Yes, I think Manly. Raiders Titans.
Raiders are at home here. I'm going to say Raiders too strong in Canberra. Very cold for the boys from the Goldie.
Yep, I'm going to go Raiders 2. Knights v Cowboys.
Newcastle.
I am going to go Newcastle. Broncos v Sharks.
Oh, listen, I'm going to get behind you here, right?
Yes.
I'm going to back your boys.
He's done it.
Broncos, please.
Yes, let's
Can
go.
we- Can you give us
Broncos 13 plus?
Give us a victory, please?
Surely, give me something. Broncos. Tigers South.
Rabbitohs too strong.
I'm going to go Rabbitohs too. That's it. Episode done and dusted. Don't forget, if you missed anything from the show, make sure to download the SEN app, grab the podcast, and we'll catch you next Wednesday from midday on SEN.